Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. Today, we're going to continue on this 30-part series of Blue Collar Leadership and Culture, the 5 components for building high-performance teams. Today, I'm going to talk to you about Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is titled The Foundation of Culture. Last time, we talked about the cost of culture. This time, we're talking about the foundation of culture. The subtitle is the organizational culture will be determined by the leader's values. And what I really mean there is the top leader's values. Ultimately, it's all of the leader's values and all of the team's values. But the foundation is what I'm talking about here. And the foundation of the entire culture is based on the top leader's values. So I want to open with a quote by Captain David Marquette of the U.S. Navy. He had an amazing book called Turn the Ship Around. And it's where he teaches and tells his story of turning around the crew, cultural transformation of a nuclear submarine crew. And it's a great, great book. I really enjoyed it. So it's an example of how you do this in a command and control environment. And I'm going to tell you, inside tip, he didn't do it with more command and control. He did it with less. So whenever you hear someone saying we need more command and control, especially if they're a military veteran, it's because they grew up and learned about leadership in the military. And in the military, they kind of force you to lead. They also kind of force you to follow. They got something called a Uniform Code of Military Justice. And if you don't lead well and you don't follow well, you get in a lot of trouble in the military. So it creates a sense of artificial leadership. And it really, that's what it is. They designed a system that creates leadership and followership, and a set of rules and punishment that forces it, basically. That doesn't mean they're not great leaders in the military. They are. There are lots of great leaders in the military. But they're not great leaders because of the UCMJ or any rules. They're great leaders because of their character. Same thing that happens in the civilian world. What I'm saying, though, is in the military, a lot of people think they're leaders because people follow them well, but it has nothing to do with them. It's got a lot to do with the UCMJ. But anyway, not going to get into that. But this book that I took that quote from, that I'm about to share with you, comes from Captain David Marquette, who took over U.S. Navy nuclear submarine, basically took it from worst to first by applying a lot of the stuff that I talk about in this book, and I talk about in all my other books. And the quote from Captain Marquette is this: greatness is achieved by using resources to help people, not using people as a resource. One more time. Greatness is achieved by using resources to help people, not using people as a resource. And a couple years back, Rhea and I had the privilege of going out and conducting 10 half-day workshops with the U.S. Navy. It had nothing to do with Captain Marquette. I've never met him or spoken with him. This is just something separate, spinning off of this. But Rhea and I had the opportunity to go out there and lead 10 leadership development, personal growth workshops, half-day workshops at Naval Base San Diego. And it's because they had a leader who was doing exactly this. They had a commanding officer out there who was using resources to help people, not just using people as a resource. And he allowed us to come out, and they bought, I can't remember now, 2,000-3,000 books and gave them out to the sailors, enlisted, and officers, and also civilian contractors were included. The first time we did a session, we spoke to nearly 1,000 of them at the base theater out there. And then the CEO said, I need some more of those books, and I want to get those folks back. And then that's when we were able to go back. We spent an entire week out there doing leadership development. Great experience, great place, San Diego. But there's good and bad leadership in every organization. It doesn't matter if it's military or civilian. And I'm going to tell you this, our military veterans have so much potential. But to be an effective, high-impact leader in the civilian world, they have to learn the same exact thing civilians do. They have to learn to lead with high character. There's no UCMJ out here in the civilian world. If you're a bad leader in the civilian world, people quit. It's called turnover, disengagement. That's where they quit but stay. Disengagement is quitting but staying. And then there's turnover. There's retention issues, all that stuff. And see, again, that's where the military command and control, UCMJ, kind of gives you an artificial sense of being a leader, because people can't just stay home tomorrow. They get in a lot of trouble if they stay home tomorrow. So the leader doesn't understand. If there was no UCMJ, I can tell you this, there's many leaders in the military who wouldn't have a team to lead because people wouldn't come back. And I've been in the military. I was in the Marine Corps right out of high school, and probably a lot of you have been in the military, and you can validate it. But there's a lot of people who don't know what they don't know, whether they've been in the military or whether they haven't. So let's talk about this foundation of culture. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines culture as the set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or organization. And values is the key word here for me. I want to take away from that definition. Values is a key word because your values are the underlying foundation which fuel your thoughts. That's why even in a military environment where there is command and control, leaders at every level are taught how to lead at that level. People at every level are also taught how to follow the leaders above. That's all good stuff. But what makes a high impact leader in the military or the civilian world is their values. It's their values. I remember my time in the military. The greatest leaders that I had to follow, no matter what level they were at, they may have been one grade above me, and I may have been at the bottom, or they may have been 5 or 6 grades above me. But what the value that they had that made them a high impact leader for us, first of all, was they cared about us as people. They didn't care about us because they had taken a course that says you got to care about your men and your women on your team. They cared about us because they cared about us. And that value fueled their thoughts. But there are a lot of other high impact leadership values. But values are the key to culture. Because thoughts produce your emotions, which influence your choices. And again, your values determine your thoughts. As a leader, what are your values? They determine your thoughts. If you don't value developing your team, you're not going to develop your team. That's what I talk about in this book. That's why you can give this book to the worst leader you know, and if they don't value developing their people, they're going to care less about this book. You give this book to a leader like Mike Huff, CEO of GAT Airline Ground Support. He sees this book. He goes and buys 600 of them and makes sure that all of his formal authority leaders learn what's in the book. That's why I'm saying the foundation of culture is the top leader's values. Some leaders, you give them this book, they throw it in the garbage. Some leaders, you give them this book, they go buy 600 of them. I guarantee you, I know if you knew these leaders, I know which one you'd rather report to. You already know which one's going to have a high impact culture, which one's not. Because our values lead to our thoughts lead to our emotions, which influence our choices. So choices lead to your results. Again, this can all be traced back to your values. But choices lead to your results, which determine your circumstances. And as I go through this book, again, this book, anybody at any level could gain value from this, but I'm going to talk to you, the audience, like you are a high impact, top level leader. And you may not be. You could be an entry level person in the blue collar workforce. But I'm telling you, if you learn what's in this book, you ain't going to always be at that level unless you want to be. You can learn what's in this book and be so far ahead of your leader. I'm talking about the owner or the CEO. But I'm still going to talk to you as you are a CEO or a business owner. That's the audience I wrote this book for. That's who I'm going to talk to as I share stories and those sort of things. The choices lead to your results, which determine your circumstances. So I'm going to say this again. I started out talking about this. The culture of an organization can be traced back to a single root cause. If you deal with a lean manufacturing environment or Six Sigma, you always know you're looking for the root cause. You might have heard of 5 whys. Why? Keep asking why till you get to the root cause. Relative to culture, I'm going to just take you straight to it. It's the top leader's values. Because whatever's happening at any level within that organization is because the top leader is allowing it to happen. They're either not engaged. Remember, we talked about disengagement last time. If they don't know it's happening and it's happening, they're still allowing it to happen because they're the top leader. They don't know it's happening maybe because they're not engaged. It's not only the frontline workforce that's not engaged. There's also top-level CEOs and business owners that are not engaged. And remember, I'm talking about engaged with leadership development. So until a leader values developing their own character, they won't value developing anyone else's character. And also, until a leader values developing their own character, they won't develop their own character. You could introduce any of my books to your leaders who've never heard of this stuff. They might open it, close it, because they don't value developing their character. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person, but it does mean they don't want to get better. And if you've got a leader you introduce any of my books to and they're not interested, not because it's me, I'm not special. These values, these principles are special. But if you go to a leader, you're trying to help them get better. You may have maybe invested in buying them a book and you take it to them and they don't have any interest. I'm telling you, you need to fire your leader and go hire you another one. What that means is quit. It may not mean quit the company. Maybe quit that leader, go to a different department where there's a better leader. Or go to a different plant in a different city or a different state where there's a better leader. Or it may mean leave that organization, go to a different organization. Or it may mean start your own business. But see, as I'm talking to top leaders don't want their top talent leaving. You don't want them to leave, top leader. Get engaged with growing and developing the people. Then they will know you value them because of who they are, people, not because of what they can do. I'm telling you, if you want to help create a company that attracts and retains top talent, help people have a better life at home and at work. And at the next organization, if that's the case. You go listen to episode 170 from CEO Mike Huff of GAT Airline Ground Support. You'll hear him say he don't want to lose his people, but if they choose to go, he's going to support them. He's going to be their cheerleader. If they played while they were on the team, if they were starters on his team, if they were A players, he's going to be the first to give them a great recommendation. And he wants his other leaders at every level to do the same thing. Grow and develop people, help them have a better life. Those people usually don't want to leave. And if they do, a lot of times they want to come back. That's just the way it works. They figure out they had something special. They had a leader who actually did care about them. So until a leader values developing the character of those on their team, they won't develop the character of those on their team. Until a leader values transforming the culture, they won't transform their culture. So if you're a top leader and you think your culture could be improved, improve it. That's your job. You're the top leader. It's your job to transform the culture. There's probably other people already out there who want to transform the culture, but they can't because they're not you. And if you don't transform the culture, those people are going to be the first ones to leave as soon as they develop an option. And because they're growing and developing themselves, they're going to develop options. So I'm not here to beat up the leaders. I'm here to raise the awareness of leaders. Cultural transformation starts at the top. Whatever the culture is, the top leaders' values created it. Because if the culture was supposed to be something else, because of the top leaders' values, it would already be something else. And see, when top leaders call me and they say, hey, Mack, I want you to help me transform the culture. One of the first things I ask them is, what does that mean to you? And then I say, you need to know what that means to me after they explain what it means to them. Because we have to see if we're aligned. If we're not aligned, I'm not the person to help. Because I'm aligned with natural laws and principles. I'm not changing. If that leader says something that's not aligned with natural laws and principles, they have an option to change, get in alignment with me. We can go make some stuff happen. But if they think they know how to do it and I don't know how to do it, they got culture problems. They want me to help them do whatever it is they want to do. They're already doing that and they got culture problems. They got to do something different. And the something different that I asked the top leader is, are you willing to change your values? Because if you're asking me to come change the culture in your organization, I can't do it. You can't do it. But you have to do exactly what all the other people in your organization have to do. You're going to have to be willing to change your values. Because the culture of an organization is simply the collective values of all the people in the organization. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. Culture. That's why cultural transformation is hard. You're having to influence people to change their values. You can't make them change their values. You can make them follow a rule, and it can appear they've changed their values. That's what happens a lot in the military with military leadership. They've got rules. You have to follow them. It doesn't mean you necessarily believe it. It means you want to follow the rule so that everything goes smooth. It's not authentic. So you can't just decide to change the values of the organization. You've got to literally, Mr. or Miss Leader, you have to change your values if you want to begin cultural transformation in the organization. Values on the inside are revealed as character traits on the outside. That's what I'm talking about. Values that we have on the inside, we don't keep them a secret. They're revealed as our character to everyone on the outside. Can't hide your values. You're living them out every day. Everyone's watching. Doesn't matter what level you're at. Organizational culture is simply a reflection of the combined character of all of the people within the organization, as I mentioned a moment ago. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again probably throughout this series. Culture equals character. Character equals culture. It's that simple. Remember, character doesn't just mean you're good or bad. Character is everything you are. It's how you do everything you do. They're one and the same. If you want to develop the culture, you've got to develop the character of the people within the organization, because the culture is based on their values. To improve their values, you've got to improve their character, and you can't make them do it. That's why it's so critical that leaders, especially the top leader, has to be engaged. The top leader, no matter if the top leader's read 1 million leadership books, when they want to change the culture within an organization, they need to go sit on the front row in any live session when there's speakers in the room speaking and talking about leadership. They need to be humble, sit on the front row, and take some notes. Because if they already knew what they needed to know, they wouldn't be in the position they're in to need cultural transformation or cultural enhancement. So when they sit on the front row, they're communicating to everyone in the room, watch me sit here and learn with you. I need to learn just like you need to learn. they're modeling. They're leading by example. They don't need to just bring somebody like me in, and then they never even come in the room. They don't even introduce me and then walk out of the room. They don't even come in the room. But the best leaders introduce us, and then they go have a seat at the front row table. They don't stand in the back so they can watch, see what everybody else does. They sit at the front so everybody else can watch and see what they do. That's a big difference in character, in leadership. So I want to share a quote from, I think the name is Grunter, not really sure, Gruenter, however you say that last name, and Whitaker. They pointed out that the culture of any organization is shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. That's so powerful at every level of leadership in the organization. But again, it starts at the top. If you've got a bad leader above you and you think, I don't know if I need to step on his toes or her toes and go around them and let the leader above them know, I'm going to tell you right now, if you've got a bad leader above you, I almost guarantee the leader above them is like them. If that leader above you has been there a long time is relative, but they've been there a long time reporting to the same leader, that leader above them values who they are. That's why they still have a job. So there's no reason to muddy the water, to cause yourself some pain, to go around your leader to tell the leader above them how terrible the leader below them is. I'm just saying, you may think different. You're welcome to it. But I'm telling you, if you got a bad leader above you, it's because the leader above them values them. If they didn't value them, they wouldn't be on their team. Most often you can tell a lot. See, a lot of times we can't see beyond the leader above us because that's where our relationship is. And if we got a bad leader above us, they don't like us to go talk to the leader above them because they're insecure and all that sort of stuff. So we don't really know the leader above them. We just tend to think they don't know how this leader is. But remember, who we are is who we attract. If there's a bad leader above you, probably a bad leader above them. Probably a bad leader above them. However far you got to go to the top, each one is there because the leader above them values having them on the team. If they've been there any amount of time to demonstrate who they are, how they operate. So if you're learning all this stuff and you got bad leaders above you, it's time to fire the leader and go find you a better leader. And if you're reading the type of stuff I'm talking about, put it on your resume. Talk about it to people when you get interviewed. Ask them if they're reading any kind of leadership development content. If they're not, that's a sign you probably don't want to hire that leader. If you value what I value, you got to go out, find leaders who value the same thing we do. All right, I'm going to leave you today with a quote from Simon Sinek. I'm actually reading right now Simon's newest book called The Infinite Game. A lot of good stuff in there, and I'm almost finished with that one. This quote didn't come from that book, though. This is from a previous book, but or I might have heard him speak. I don't remember where I got this quote from. But Simon says, values are not simply posters on a wall. In order for a culture to be strong, your values must be clear and your values must be lived. It's good stuff from Simon. Values must be lived. Means you have to model it, which means you truly value it. Valuing saying something and valuing doing something is two completely different levels of value. I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. So think about that. If you didn't listen to episode 1, first part of this series on chapter 1, the last episode, go back, catch up. Hope you get this book. Dive into it. Again, regardless of what level you're at. But again, it's written for the top leader. How do you transform your culture? If you're not the top leader and you want to know how does a top leader transform a culture, read this book. This is what they have to do. They got to do a whole lot more than this, but what's in this book, they have to do it. They can't not do it and transform the culture. But if they read this book and they start doing the things that are in it, they're going to find out there's a whole lot more to do than just what's in this book. Again, this book formatted like all my Blue Collar Leadership series books, 30 chapters, 3 pages each. It's perfect for a high impact leader at the top to do what Mike Huff did. Take this book, take your executive team, get them to take their team, get them to take their team, start cascading this thing down through the organization using a book study. That way you're casting the vision of what we're about to do and why. Let me help you help the team. Then everybody knows why we're doing what we're doing. If just the leader reads this book and doesn't use it to cascade the vision, cast the vision to everyone else, the leader knows what we're doing, but everybody else has to guess. And then there goes the rumor mill, the grapevine. People have to start figuring out why we're doing what we're doing. But if you'll take them through this book, it'll be easy to generate buy-in. They'll be excited and waiting for this stuff to actually happen instead of coming up with a million reasons that are wrong as to why we're about to do what we're doing. All right. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.